Hi, I'm Christina,
And I'm Matt.
and this is New Ways Podcast. Today, our guest is founder of Obsidian Solar, founder and CEO of Aperia Finance, entrepreneur, and sales guru. Ryan Ondras, thank you for being here.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. So thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm super excited for this conversation because for our viewers, our guests, I've known Ryan since high school days?
Since high school days.
Little babies.
Feels like forever ago.
Honestly, it does. And
Yeah.
we've gone through periods of our life where we're super close, then disconnected, then found each other again in our friendship. And you have such an incredible story. And seeing you from kind of the little hoodlum we were to now what you've accomplished is incredible.
Yeah.
So please share with us kind of your journey. I know when we reconnected in Dallas a few years ago, you told me there was one point you were living out of your car.
Yes. Yeah. That was a fun period, sarcastically. But yeah, there was a time where, everything was going right, and then, everything went wrong very quick.
Mhm.
And I always had a dream of, owning a company and starting a business. So I did entrust into somebody to kind of get that started. Well, from trusting them, it ended up becoming something much more, right? And not to get too far into that, but it led me to being homeless, and at one point, finding change in my car so my dog and I can split a burger, at McDonald's. And um, a lot of people are like, well, why didn't you tell anybody? I didn't tell my parents. I didn't tell anybody. I kind of had a lot of pride, and I didn't want to put a lot of pressure on them. So, at that point, it was kind of like a do or die scenario, right? Like you feel like you're drowning, and you get down to the bottom of the lake, and you're like, well, I guess there's really nowhere else to go, right?
Mhm.
So then you start to get this weird confidence, like, okay, well, I didn't die, right? I'm still alive. I'm
Yeah.
still kicking. So it's like I can't go any lower.
Mhm.
And then you really start to search within yourself, and then you get to a point where you're like, you know what? Like I'm kind of tired of this, like I can get back on my feet,
Mhm.
So after some time, I really just yeah, got back on my feet, just try to get my head right, started to have confidence again in myself. And it led to a situation where I got back into sales. I had a very close friend of mine. He kept telling me about the solar industry and how much money his guys were
Mhm.
making, and it was kind of like a Wolf of Wall Street moment where he's like, well, come to one job with me, right, or come to one close with me. And I was like, you know what, I'll do that. So I went on to close with him, and we're driving back, and he closed the deal. It was like 45 minutes, and I'm like, what, how much did you make? Like looked pretty easy. And he's like, I was like 5 grand. And I just stopped because, like, for me, I'm like,
You're like,
almost
I'm
five.
living out of my car.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm living out of my car. I'm like, this guy just made 5 grand. And I'm like, okay, I stop everything and I work for you, right? And I'm like, let's go do this. So yeah, it just worked really well from there. I learned a lot, made some really good money. And then it was a point where I'm like, there's a lot of things wrong and I can fix it. Well, I wanted to help him, and I wanted to, help fix a lot of those things, but I just really didn't have the power to do so. So, got to another situation where I'm like, maybe this is my chance, right? Like,
Mhm.
I can take this risk and I can make this jump, and then see where it takes me. Because once again, you have that mindset of like, well, I already know what rock bottom is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can handle it. So that confidence that I had in myself, I'm like, screw it. I'm just going to do it.
Mhm.
So, you took the leap of faith, and my goodness, the next 3 years were not easy, but completely changed my life.
Yeah.
I went from nothing, struggling, and just kind of freaking out about what the next day was going to bring. Um, and it got to a point where, it's just everything excelled. And I had a lot of people looking up to me. I had a lot of people asking me, how did you do it? And I never really told my story because, once again, I was too proud,
Yeah.
and it wasn't a knock. I was looked at it as like it was a knock against me. I was looked at it like, oh, people would look down and be like, oh, you were homeless, and
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
really never said it until I told one individual, and they were like, I don't know why you're not telling other people your story.
Mhm.
They're like, there's so many people out there that have been in your shoes, and they just think they can't get out of it.
Mhm.
And for me, I was like, you know what? Like, you're right. I think there's a lot of people out there that could probably hear like, hey, you can go through hell and it could seem like the world is just all on your shoulders and there's nowhere to go. But if you put your mind to the test and you build a routine and you really put everything into it, you can truly change your entire life.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. And one thing too is that you talked about kind of, hitting rock bottom and where you were in your time and where you were in that moment. How long were you sort of in that space before recognizing you're like, okay, something needs to change?
Yeah, that was I think it was about 2, 3 months. See, so COVID, oh my gosh. So COVID ended up hitting.
Hmm.
And living in your car isn't so bad when you got the gym and you can shower,
Yeah.
right? And you could
Yeah.
use the bathrooms. And then COVID hit and all that was gone.
Yeah.
That was the catalyst for me. I was just like, oh, I got to get moving.
You
Like,
literally had to like lose absolutely everything then.
yes, like
Yeah.
that was true homelessness and that was rough. Yeah, it was about, I would say close to 3 months. And then finally, I'm like, I've got to do something real. And then, opportunities begin to present themselves. And once again, you just have to be ready. When an opportunity presents itself, you got to jump at it. Right.
Hmm.
Um,
Did you go
and
looking for the opportunity or was it just somehow it found you?
I think subconsciously I was
Yeah.
right. And every day it's like, something's got to happen. Something's got to happen. Like, I know
You
this
had
isn't my
faith.
life. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
100% faith. I think that's so important, is to love yourself and to have faith and to just have that confidence, even if there's really nothing to be confident about.
Hmm.
Right? Like, even if you're in the worst position and, you just, it seems like there's nothing positive that can happen. It's like, as long as you can kind of have even fake confidence, it's just life is going to present you with those options, right? Because
Hmm.
law of attraction, right? So it's whatever you believe and you continuously think about and you are passionate about it and you put all this energy towards it, the universe is going to present you with, those opportunities. And you just have to be, you have to be brave enough to jump at it and just never look
Hmm.
back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know you talk about too, this friend comes to you and offers you this opportunity then to work for him, which
Right.
essentially is what brought you to making your own business. What caused you to say, okay, I'm working for you, I'm making good money still, but this isn't the right fit for me. I'm going to go independent.
Because I was building him essentially a company without any pay for it. I
Okay.
was I was really building the company off of my own commissions.
Yeah.
Well, his company off of my own commissions, right? So I was paying for my own marketing, my own advertising, my own marketing materials. So it got to a point where I'm like, well, hey man, like if I got to get something out of this, like, right?
Mhm.
I'm kind of just kicking myself around. So once I knew that wasn't apparent, and I was never going to be able to kind of take control of certain things, and I didn't want my customers to continuously have these issues, and you just feel kind of handcuffed,
Mhm.
right? There's so many people I feel like they work at a company and it's like you're handcuffed and you're like, I would do this differently and I would do this differently. I almost feel like everyone has that same experience, and not many people do anything about it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? You just stick with it and you just keep getting beat up, and you're like, well, I would do this better, and it's like, well, then just do it, because I got to that mindset where I'm like, you know what, screw it. I'm not going to keep doing this over and over and over again and keep telling you, hey, this is the solution, and then you guys do something else because you just
Yeah.
don't care. And I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to do it myself.
Mhm.
So barely had money because I was paying off a lot of different debts and everything like that, right? Had no credit, obviously.
Yeah.
So starting a company with no credit and very little money, not it's not ideal.
Yeah.
But you
Um,
can do it. That's where I'm
yeah,
like, I feel like that's what gets a lot of people stuck is they're like, I could be doing this better. I can solve this issue. I can give people more value in making something my own, but they just think it's so far out of reach. They're like, I don't have the funds, I don't have the time. Like a lot of it comes down to money, I feel like
Yeah.
too.
money
So
is a big one, and
yeah.
then so are bills, right? You kind of trap yourself with bills, and you kind of trap yourself with all these things that you honestly necessarily really don't need, right? A lot of people can find a very inexpensive way to live.
Yeah.
And I always talk about Robert Kiyosaki because I've read a couple of his books, and reading is extremely important if you want to change your life. And Robert Kiyosaki and his wife, they left their jobs and to live out of their car to kind of start everything.
Mhm.
So I gained a lot of inspiration from, those types of stories. And, bringing that into my life and kind of my experience, it's like, you have to have a threshold. And once
Mhm.
you hit to a certain point, right? There's a point where you're just like, enough is enough. I'm tired of it. I'm going to take control of my life and I'm going to start making a difference. And once you do that, you truly feel free.
Yeah.
You
Where
feel
there's
like,
a will, there's a way.
yeah, like,
Yeah.
the weights are off, right? The shackles are off and you're finally free and you can start moving and being yourself.
I mean, have you ever heard that phrase where it's just like you can either make your dreams come true or somebody's gonna pay you to make theirs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where I'm like, I'd rather have my dreams than somebody else's.
Right. Yeah, because then it's your
Yeah.
life and then it's your creation.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you get to look back on something that you created and you impacted other people. That's truly special and it's motivating even for, yourself, right? You're just like, look at all this I just did.
Mhm.
And you just want to do more.
You just
Yeah.
have to kinda believe that you can do it. And also too, I love how you mentioned Robert Kawasaki. Is that how you say his last name?
Robert Kiyosaki, Robert
Kiyosaki, yeah.
Kiyosaki.
He's the author of Rich Dad Poor Dad, correct?
Yes.
S
And yeah.
For our listeners, I really encourage anybody to read that book. I've personally read it, and it'll really flip your mindset.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the business of the 21st century, where he talks about the four quadrants of life. And that was something that actually started to change the way I thought.
Mhm.
Because he talked about the E quadrant, which is like you're an employee. And everyone searches for safety. And it's a false sense of safety because you're not safe as an employee. You can be fired at any point.
Mhm.
And then
Totally,
what?
like, yeah.
Right? And then you have the S quadrant where it's the sole proprietor, right? You go into where you're an independent contractor. So then you start to learn about taxes and you start to learn about, okay, well, I'm starting to have more responsibility.
Mhm.
So you move through these quadrants. Now from S, you move to either I, which is an investor, or you
Mhm.
move into B, which is a business owner.
Yeah.
So if you take these steps, you can take them in small increments. You don't have to jump straight into B, right? You can take these and kind of learn your lessons along the way. And that's essentially what I did, almost without even knowing it. And then, later on, I kind of tied it all back into that. I was like, wow, this man is a genius because it makes the process so much easier. You're not just hopping straight into it, making all these big mistakes that are costly mistakes when you're a business owner.
Yeah.
So when you jump into that S quadrant, then you can start to move over into some of those other things and do what you really want to do.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like there's so many resources out there. Like, you don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Right.
Other people have built successful businesses, and that's why we'll go into talking about it later because I know you have a great mentor. But
Mhm.
like, mentors don't have to be people that you physically know. Yes, you can be blessed and have some, but they can be authors of books who have done the thing that you want to do also.
Yeah.
So if you don't mind kind of then bringing us down this little journey and road, how did you actually go about starting your business with no money? Like, what was the step? Besides being like, I can do this better, I'm going to start doing it. Then
Right.
what?
If, first thing is to just get the LLC,
Okay.
right? Just to make it real,
Mhm.
right? Just go into, and I told a couple of close buddies that wanted to start their own companies. I'm like, just go on Zen Business, right? Or there's a couple other ones where it's kind of done for you,
Yeah.
right?
LegalZoom.
Y-
That's where I did mine.
Yes,
Wait,
yes.
what is
See,
it?
LegalZoom.
LegalZoom.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many tools out there right now that make it so easy to kind of get started. And that's what I was grateful for. I'm like, awesome. I don't have to send this into the Secretary of State and kind of do all this different
Mhm.
paperwork. I just paid money and they just sent it. And I was like, whoo, awesome. Right. The process has begun.
Yeah.
And the way I look at it is if you can make it real, now you know that it's up to you and you have to take accountability and you have to take responsibility and be like, all right, this is my baby, right? You can't just have a baby and just be like, later, right? So
I
like,
mean, some people do, but
yeah, not
I
the best
digress.
people, yeah.
Continue. Yes.
You're right. But yeah, I made it real for myself. So when that happened, it was just let's get going. So I was, oh gosh, I started doing interviews in like Starbucks, Panera. I didn't have an office. So you're doing these interviews and you're just kind of just fumbling along because once again, you don't really know,
Mhm.
right? And you got to pitch a vision to people because you don't have money, right? You really don't have anything to offer them other than a vision of, look, what do you want out of life? And if their response is like, I want to be a part of something great and I want to grow something, right? And it's like, awesome. Well, then you're in the right place because we could do this together,
Mhm.
right? We can grow this thing together and we can become successful. This is what I've done. just follow me. I'll train you, I'll show you the ropes. And, hopefully later down the road, this is all going to pan out for, both of us. Right. Um, and it's getting the first person to believe in you, um, that truly gives you that momentum. So it's every single day you have to be putting in work, and you're gonna fail because my goodness, I don't know how many people I've hired and then gave them like a shirt and then they just never showed up. And I'm like, that's a $50 shirt, I'm like,
Yeah.
give me the shirt back, and then they just, they block you, and you're dealing with so much rejection, um, that you have to be comfortable with it. So in the beginning for me, it was a lot of rejection, it was a lot of repetitiveness, but once you found your core team of around 5 people, because
Mhm.
effectively you can manage around 5 people. That's like the most efficient way.
Yeah.
Anything past that, you start to get a little bit weak on in the individual process. So once I found my core five, then we just really started to grow. And you build that camaraderie and you build that brotherhood, or like that family atmosphere, um, where everyone's accountable and everyone's responsible and you hold each other accountable. So the great thing is when we finally got enough to get an office, I was showing up at like 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the morning, and some of the guys saw that, and then bam, they would show up 6 o'clock in the morning, and we started like racing to the office. And it's infectious, right? Like you're like, no, I'm gonna get to the office earlier. Now we're showing up at like 5 o'clock in the morning, and we don't leave the office until like 11 or 12.
Mhm.
Now there's something special happening, right? And you just
Mhm.
see the growth, and then now you start to look at your income, and it's like, right? And now you start to get the bar graph where everything's getting better and better,
Mhm.
and that's that momentum. But you know, to digress and go back to how to get started, you have to start somewhere, and don't expect everything to happen quick. Um, it's just getting started is the hard part, but once you do it, everything else kind of actually falls into place. It's kind of like going to the gym. It's so hard for people to get to the gym,
Yeah.
right? But what happens when you get to the gym? You're like, "Oh, I guess I'm going to have to work out. I'm
Yeah.
not just going to stand here." So, get to the gym. Everyone focuses on, well, then I get to the gym, but then I'm going to have to lift. And it's like, stop worrying about what you have to do afterwards. Just get there, show up. Being present and
Mm.
just showing up is literally probably 50 to 70% of the battle. Because what is our mind doing during most of that time? It's like, oh no, let's comfortable, let's stay comfortable, let's stay home,
Yeah.
let's do the easy route, or let's do the for sure thing.
Yeah.
And a lot of people kill their dreams that way because they're just trying to be safe and they're trying to be comfortable. And it's like it's gonna eat you up later on.
Mhm.
So just showing up and just being like, you know what, I'm here, you're gonna start working, right?
Yeah.
Like it's going to happen. So um, with all of that, one of the biggest things that helped me really stay focused was creating a routine. And I always talk about how important that routine is.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I kind of came up with a method to help me kind of build out my own routine because I just didn't know how the hell to do that. I was completely lost.
Mhm.
So I started with, my morning, right? It was see it, measure it, manage it. So I would focus on what are all the things that I need to do to be successful. It's like reading, meditating, because right, your mental health is extremely important.
Mhm.
And then everything else that you do in the morning, which is like brush your teeth or shower. If you got a dog, take care of your dog, right? All those things. You write them all down. After you write those things down, you then measure it. How do you measure it? Well, if you don't know how long it takes for you to brush your teeth, time it, right? If you
Mhm.
don't know how long it takes to take your dog down from, the seventh floor down to the bottom, take them in, time it. Once you measure each of those things, now you start to look at how long does all this take in my morning, right? So some people will be like, well, I wake up at 8 o'clock and I work at 9. And it's like, okay, all the things that you just said that you wanted to do to make yourself successful, that takes 3 hours.
Oh, wow.
So you're never going to do it.
Yeah.
You're setting yourself up for failure.
Mhm.
It's never going to happen. So once you measure it, now you can start managing your life. And then you go, okay, now I can start formulating, okay, well, I could put this here, I could put that there. And then all of a sudden, every morning is the same. And now you're accomplishing everything that you've wanted to.
Mhm.
And the only sacrifice that you're taking is maybe a loss of 1 to 2 hours of sleep
Mhm.
that you could get by going to sleep maybe 1 to 2 hours earlier. So you take control of your life. And, from there, life starts to happen for you, right? It doesn't happen to you. So you take control of your day and you no longer rebel at the end of the day. A lot of people will rebel against their own schedule,
Mhm.
right? Because they don't have
Yep.
control over it. That's what ends up happening is you don't have this control. So then you're angry and you're just like, well, whatever, I'm gonna go out and party, right? And then you don't sleep and then you go do it the next day and you're just like, well, the only control I have is to go out and do whatever I want. So you end up self-sabotaging yourself instead of going, well, why don't I just take control? Stop making all those little tiny decisions, right? You look at
Mhm.
some most successful people, they wear the same clothes every day. They don't want to make those decisions, right? They want to leave those big decisions for big decisions.
Matt's over here like
See,
That's me.
see, success
They
right here,
guys,
ladies and gentlemen.
they guys make fun of me so much for wearing the exact same clothes every
I
single
love it
day
though. It
on this
fits you
show.
so much.
Well, thank
Yeah.
you, but no, it's true. Like I'll
Right?
occasionally put a different jacket on.
Yeah,
That's it.
that's it.
Yeah.
That's all you need
Yep.
Yeah.
because you just save it. You save it for the big stuff.
Yeah.
That's what Matt does. He saves the big decisions for the big stuff.
I mean, it's just also my ADHD, and I just suck. But
Could be that too. Yeah. I think we all have a little ADHD.
Right?
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
But I love how pretty much is what you're saying is like make it as simple as possible for you so you can kind of see the vision of doing things. Like you said with the clothes or whatever, you don't need to be wasting your time on energy on things that really don't matter.
Yeah.
Like you need to be spending your time on your energy on things that are going to improve you and your life so you can accomplish this thing that you want to. You actually said, and you kind of went into it a little bit, but in the car on the way here, you said why most people don't make those morning routines and why they stay in their own comfort zone. Can you repeat that? Because that is what hit me really hard. You kind of just like went about the rat race in a way.
Correct. A lot of people, and once again, it's you have a lack of control, right? And when you feel like you don't have control over your life and you feel like kind of everything is just moving very rapidly and it's fast paced and you start skipping important steps.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the hardest thing in the world is to kind of let autopilot take place with your input. So let me say that a little a little better. So a lot of moments in your life are actually on autopilot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I forgot the exact percentage. I believe it's like around 30 to 40% of the decisions that you make are actually on autopilot. And if you can control what's on autopilot and make it so that it is basically a cheat code for your life, right? So it's like, okay, well, I put all these little things on autopilot, but none of these things really help me. Now, if I control what's on autopilot and I go, okay, cool. Well, I want to read more, I want to be healthier. I want to go to the gym. I want to do this. And you put those things in a box where you do that for 30 to 60 days. What happens? It becomes habit. And habit is what? It's autopilot.
Mm-hmm.
You don't really know that you're doing it.
So you're recreating your autopilot versus most people's autopilot, which is what was created for them in this world.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yes. So you're essentially kind of just moving off of, something that you didn't even really design for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And a lot of us don't know how to break out of that cycle of just the loop of, oh, man, I don't feel, I'm lost, or I don't feel like I'm in the right place, or I don't feel like I'm
Yeah.
moving in the right direction. And it takes until you finally sit down and go, all right, 24 hours in a day. Like, I've got enough time. What is the number one excuse everybody?
I don't have enough
I don't have
time.
enough time. There's not enough time in a day. It's like really just 24 hours. You're
Well,
telling
we
me right
all
now that-
have, all of us, every single human on this earth has the same amount of time.
right.
Like Elon Musk has the same amount of time as us and he thinks he can go to the moon.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's all what you think is possible and how you spend your time.
Mhm.
None of us have more or less of it. We all have the same 24 hours. It's what you choose to do with it.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. And that's why it's important. And those three steps of see it, measure it, manage it, you can apply it to your life and you can watch as everything really does start to change in a positive manner. Because once again, when you're meditating, right, you're taking care of your mental health, which is super important. And I think not a lot of people really understand the impact that a negative mindset can have, right? What negative energy can do to not only you, but to everyone else around you.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're not helping anyone by being negative. When you're negative, you actually have a stronger impact on the surroundings of you rather than positive does on people, right?
Yeah.
So if negativity has that strong of an impact, it's like try to get it out of your life. And what does that mean? It's like, okay, well, you know, how can I change that? It's like, well, every morning just do a little meditation. Do the things that you want to do, right? Is being healthy going to make you happy? Being healthy is probably going to make you happy, right? Is feeling like you're knowledgeable going to make you happy? Yeah. Like, right? I don't think there's anyone that's smart that's like, I hate my life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are things that are going to make you proud to be, who you are. And if you're not doing that every day, then you're
What are you
spending.
doing?
Yeah,
Yeah.
what are you doing? You're spending those days going backwards. And when the world is always improving, maintaining is never maintaining. That's something that's so terrifying for me, is to maintain. When somebody just tells me like, "Hey, you should chill, just relax, just maintain it." I'm like, that's regression. The world's always going to improve. We're always
Mhm.
growing. Everything grows every day, every second. So if you're just planning on maintaining your life, like you're regressing.
Mhm.
You're going backwards. So it's like, why not do something where it's going to improve every single day and it's going to make your life better over time?
Yeah. How do you, though, at the same time, how do you like incorporate stillness into your life if you do at all? I think a lot of people also too talk about like also being able to take a step back so you don't end up with burnout.
The burnout, yeah.
So how do you take a
The
step
burnout.
back from burnout, but still at the same time grow as a person?
Ooh, in business, that's hard. Um, you can do it though, and that's a amazing question, because I had such a problem with that. I was working 7 days a week. I was working 16, 18 hours a day, sometimes longer, sometimes maybe 2 to 3 hours of sleep. And I think it was in year 2.5 where my eyes started twitching, and it was just getting to a point where I could kind of feel like I was like I was ready to break.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have to learn to set aside time, whether it's, on days where there's not too much stuff going on. Because what you don't want to do is take time off and then come back and it's just hell breaks loose, right? You just, all this stuff starts piling up. So, maybe have a day to where you plan and to go to somewhere where, no phones,
Mhm.
or, you just something that it relaxes you, whether it's fishing, whatever your hobby is, whatever it may be. You're right, you have to have at least a day, maybe a month, because outside of that, if you're trying to do it every single week, you know what I mean, you're kind of taking days away from when you can have production. So maybe once a month, twice a month, where you kind of dedicate that time to kind of remove yourself out of the picture. And also that helps with creativity.
Mhm.
It helps to take a step back and look at the company as a whole, and not work in the company, but then work on the company. And if you kind of want to just take a full removal out of work, you can definitely do that too. So you can definitely customize it. Once again, this is the see it, measure it, manage it. So you can incorporate this into your monthly schedule,
Yeah.
right? You can be
Mhm.
like, all right, cool. Every 2 weeks, I'm going to do a self care day. Go get a massage, right? Or
Mhm.
go, go to a spa, or take a step back and really start to look at the company and start to lay out a plan. So that's an amazing question, because that's something that's really important, because you could put in all the time in the world,
Yeah.
but if
Mhm.
you're right, if you do not take time out for yourself, you will blow up. It's just a matter of time. I thought like, "Oh, I could be like Elon Musk, I could work forever and blah blah blah." And then I saw an interview where he was like, I play games on Sunday. And this was like 2.5 years into it. And I was like, I thought Elon was working 7 days a
You're
week.
like, "I don't have to be doing this all the time 24/7 what? To be
Yeah.
successful, huh?"
Yeah.
I'm like twitching at the computer, and I'm like, really, Elon? Like, you didn't say
You
this in
couldn't have
anything
said
else?
that publicly before, like, a while ago?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm like, come on, Robert Kiyosaki, you didn't have a chapter on, self care? I
That
was
is
like,
true, he doesn't, I don't think.
Yeah.
no, no,
A lot of them don't.
Yeah,
they
they
don't.
don't.
Why?
I don't know, it could also
Right?
That's a
yeah.
really
That's
good
why I said that
point.
was an amazing question, because that was something that really hurt me. That was something that really killed me, because it started to do what? It started to affect my mental health.
And it affects people around you too when you're like when
Yes.
you're not taking care of
Yeah.
yourself, you're more on edge, you're more reactive instead of proactive, and therefore the people around you are affected by that type of energy.
100%.
So yeah, I feel like that could really make or break a business too.
100%. I'm sure I was not fun to be around towards the end of that 2.5 years,
Yeah.
because I was just like, I
Yeah.
was just dying.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm sure if I would have taken more time, you could start to, kind of get grounded again.
Yeah.
But it is interesting how that's really not spoken about often. I believe Tony Robbins has
He does
talked.
in his yeah, he did in his, seminar, his conference that I went to, he does talk
Yes.
about, like, making sure that you're right,
Yes.
like, mentally wise. He's like, "Take a breath, realize why you're doing this, like, take care of your body." I feel like that's maybe how that kinda generation does it, is they're like, "Take care of your body."
Right.
Because to them, that's just, like that's their form of self-care because that wasn't talked about back then.
Right.
Like, mental health wasn't really that big of a thing, I feel like, potentially.
Yeah. Well, it was like a sign of weakness,
Yeah.
right? If you admitted to having depression or if you admitted to something, it was kind of a
Yeah.
sign of
Or needing
weakness.
help in a way, yeah.
Yeah, it's like if you ask for help, it's like, it was like this weird stigma. They were like, "Oh, this guy,
Mhm.
Yeah.
he's weak." It's like it's like what?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like everyone needs help.
I really love how you also said though, like incorporate it into your routine because then that way that's also setting people up for success also because you're putting that time aside, oh, my week's coming up that I'm taking this day off. So therefore I can make sure I do have that day to only focus on me that day.
Mhm.
Because I feel like a lot of people wait until they're like, I really need a day off. And then they have that day off and they're like, shit, I didn't take care of all this other stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like they might have a day
Yes.
off, but it's still living in the back of their head, which isn't any
It
more
doesn't shut
restful.
off.
Yeah.
Right. And that's another great point because it's flipping that switch and it's learning how to do so.
Mm-hmm.
And once again, it takes repetition. So, maybe on your first couple, you're probably not going to, maybe see the difference because you're probably just going to be like, oh my God, I wonder if so and so is doing this, or I wonder
Yeah.
if they just sent the report, or if, you know what I mean? You start thinking about Monday. But once you start to have that repetition, then you can start to drown out the noise and then you can really start to focus on like, okay, let's just relax our breathing and, just
Mhm.
get to a normal heart rate and just let your brain breathe for a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
because it's a chaotic world that we live in and everything's so fast today. It's
Yeah.
only going to get faster. It's only going to get more chaotic. So we have to be super mindful of like how we feel and be honest with ourselves and the people around us. So then they can help if they notice like, hey, you're kind of going off the rocker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why we talked about forming a great team, right?
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. You got to surround yourself with good people.
One of our previous guests that we just had on heavily talked about being able to surround yourself with healthy people.
Yeah.
And we talked actually a little bit about some of the characteristics of a healthy person that you would surround yourself with. So I'd love to know what are some of the characteristics that you've surrounded yourself with when it comes to having better people around you.
One of the biggest things is like work ethic. Um, it's it's how hard they work, right? And if I see somebody that is very motivated, very passionate, I love to be around those people because that passion, once again, is infectious.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And when you're around somebody that just is like, yeah, I'm good where I'm at, I'm comfortable. It's just got like you. It starts to hit you a little bit, and you're kind of like, yeah, I could
Well,
be
they know
comfortable too.
they're not going to also want to build your business with you too.
Right, or even maybe
Yeah.
talk about some of those things. So, to sharpen your sword, you gotta use it. And you gotta fight, right?
Mhm.
Like you gotta kind of learn the trick of the trade, and the only way to do that is by surrounding yourself with those individuals. And naturally, that's all you're going to talk about. That's all you're going to do. So if that's all that you talk about, that's all that you do, that's all that you think about, it's going to happen, and you're going to like just tremendously increase your probability of being successful.
Yeah.
Right? There's the saying where it's, if you have 9 loser friends, you're bound to be the 10th. If you have if you have 9
Yeah.
friends who are highly successful, you're bound to be the 10th. I don't think it's a shocker that when people grow up in certain environments that they just naturally become successful, right?
Yeah.
When I say certain environments, I mean like, you look at Silicon Valley and you're surrounded by a bunch of people who everyone's trying to start a business. Why do you think there's so much
Yeah.
growth there? There's so much innovation because that's all you're surrounded by.
Yeah.
So if whatever you want to do in life, make sure that your friends, are emulating that same, passion or that maybe that same goal. But also, I think, holding that aside, truly the most important thing that you can really never overlook is loyalty. Because you can have all the friends in the world and they could be successful, but if they're not loyal and if they're not really good people, um, it doesn't matter where you're going because they can bring you down in a quick second, right?
Mhm.
Or you can
Yeah.
put the trust, like I have, in the wrong person, and next thing you know, you end up homeless, living in your car, digging for quarters, right? So, looking for what's healthy is it's like, and loyalty, right? It takes a while to kind of know if someone's loyal
Mhm.
or know if someone's honest, and it takes kind of understanding who they surround themselves with. So if you look at people's circle,
Yeah.
you'll be able to figure out, who is this individual? Because once again, you're the closest to your friend group. Um, so yeah, I think it's super important. Number one is just to make sure that you trust the individual and that they're not a bad person. And how do you do that? You talk to their friends, right? You're just like,
I agree with that though, because you are the company you keep.
Yeah.
yeah,
So because like, I really love when I make new friends and then I become their friends because that's how you have good people all around.
yeah,
Is when you like their friends and you get along with them because you're like, oh, I like you, I like your friends. Like chances are this is gonna work. But that is true where you vibe with somebody, you think they're okay, you meet their friend and you're like, whoa.
oh yeah,
You're like, if I like you, but she likes you, how can I stand to be around? It just something doesn't connect.
red flag,
Yeah.
red flag.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you see the red flags, there's
Don't ignore them.
Yeah, and it's hard because everyone wants to ignore it, right? You're like, I
Yeah.
finally found someone that I like, and you're like, oh, there's a red flag. I'll skip through it, and it's like,
Mhm.
well, you should probably.
I feel like also when you do start to like surround yourself more with genuine good people who are loyal and want what's best for you. Like we were talking, I'm like, there's no lack in my world. Like all the friends that I bring around me, I'm like, I want us all to build and grow together.
yeah,
I feel like you sharpen then your kind of signal to realize who's going to be good for you and who's not going to be good for you in the future. It's all
Right.
about like practicing and implementing and being conscious of what's around you because then it's like business. You start doing it and you start realizing like where your faults were and where you can go further,
yeah,
if that makes sense. It's all just like a muscle. You keep building it.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't want people to think like in order to start a business, you got to be in the right crowd because I was heavily alone. Like I was very lonely. It was
Yeah.
not, and that's honestly a lot of business is very lonely. But through the experience of growing the business and everything, you start to get around those people by not even choice. Like they just kind of start to come into your life, and you start to go, oh, okay,
So building off of that too, I know that you met kind of during those days where you were hanging out with the wrong people. Somebody came into your life kind of out of nowhere
yeah,
and it was Roger, your
Yeah.
mentor,
Yeah.
and you said you had one conversation with him where most people would see that conversation, be like, oh, I really liked that conversation, but not actually establish the friendship. But you went ahead and you're like, yo, man, I could use you. Can we be friends? Can you talk about why when you find somebody, especially a mentor, it's super beneficial to you and don't be scared to ask for help to somebody who's done the thing?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's either, ask for help because I'm like, oh my goodness, I
You met
remember.
Roger at a club, right?
Well,
Yeah.
it was a house party. It was
Okay, a
like,
house party.
yeah, it was a house party, and we ended up just started talking, and it was in the beginning, it was more so kind of just friendship, right?
Yeah.
And it was just like, cool, we both have very similar interests, and the more that we spoke, the more that I started to learn more from him, and it became a mentorship.
Mm-hmm.
It was just kind of a natural fit. Um, I was always very apprehensive about like going up to somebody and being like, "Hey, can you help me out?" Or I'd love to learn from you. Like I just
Yeah.
never did it.
Yeah.
It was just kind of like a weird thing to ask, and I would always be like, "Ah, they probably don't want to." It wasn't until I got into the position where guys were coming up to me and going like, "Hey, how did you do it?" Or what can I do differently? Where I was like, I love helping people, and I love giving insight and maybe giving some lessons or
Yeah.
tricks of the trade, whatever. I have a love and a passion for it because I love watching people go from here to here.
Yeah.
I think it's the most just oh my god, so much fun just to watch somebody go from here to here because you just see them evolve as a human, right, and as a
Yeah.
person. So I mean, if I can give somebody advice for like finding a mentor, it's go up to them, go talk to them, and just be like, "Hey, like, how did you get here?" Oh my goodness, perfect example here is a guy named Jay. Um, a really good friend of mine, and kid's brilliant. He came up to Roger and I. So Roger and I were in his Lamborghini Urus, and we're both sitting there. We're getting ready to go get lunch, and Jay comes out. Jay's like 19. He's like 19 years old. He comes out in a sweatshirt and sweatpants, and he comes out to the Lambo in the garage, and he's like, "Hey, can I ask you a question?" Roger's like, he's like, "What?" And he's like, "What do you do to like get this? Like what was your inspiration?" So we started asking Roger questions. Well, Roger goes, he goes, "Well, what are you doing right now?" He's like, I was just getting coffee." And he goes, "Well, come with us." And he's like, "What?" And Roger looks over at me. He's like, "Cool, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, heck yeah." And he's like, "Come with us." He's like, "What, right now?" He goes, 10, 9, 8. And Jay's like, right now? And he's like 7, 6. And Jay's like, oh my God. So Jay jumps in the back seat and he like closes the door and he's sitting back there. He's all like apprehensive. And he's looking around. He's like, you guys are going to kill me, right? And I just start laughing. And I was like, hey, Jay, I'm Ryan. And like we shook hands. And it was funny because we're all like good friends now. Jay's, massively successful, has his company, right? Now he's doing real estate. But we joke about it. And we have our like little like friendship anniversary of that day.
Aw.
It was July. I think it was like July 1st. Jay, don't kill me. I think it was like July 1st. But we always talk about it because it honestly changed a lot of our lives. Just adding in once again somebody that is a good, like just a beautiful human being, great intentions, wants what's best for people, and wants to be better. And just seeing what that did for all of us gave me that kind of once again gave me the confidence to be like, wow, like it's just I personally just thought, when you're up there, like, what do you want to do talking to anybody?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you're just gonna shrug them off. But to see how like our friendship built from Jay coming out and it was a ugly sweatshirt and these weird gray sweatpants, and then now we're all best buddies and stuff. It
Yeah.
was just So it's just having once again the confidence and just being like, I'm just gonna do it, and then everything kind of changes from there.
I tell people all the time, you would be surprised when because a lot of times successful people who genuinely love what they're doing, they do want to share that kind of wealth.
Yeah.
So like, yes, you might get that person who you go up to and it's met with a cold shoulder, but you
Yeah.
also might get that person you go up to and they're like, yes, let me help you.
Yes.
Like you actually
will.
never know.
You always will.
Yep.
You get over the mindset of like, I will find that person, because rejection is a part of life.
Mhm.
And if I could give somebody any form of advice to like get prepared for rejection, go find a door knocking job. Go door knocking, go canvassing. You want to be rejected 100, 150 times, 300 times a day. Go do that, because you'll be rejected 150, 300 times. But you'll get that one yes that makes it all worth it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then if you have that mentality through life, like not, I hope,
I will.
I will, right? And you just build that confidence. And once again, even if it's fake,
Yeah.
even if deep down
Well, the
in
thing
your
is you
stomach,
fake it long enough, it becomes true.
fake it till
Yep.
you make it. And
Yeah.
it's very true. Trick yourself. Like your mind controls your body, right? And it's like both of them are in unison. So if you're tricking your mind to trick your body, right, you're gonna do it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's gonna happen. It's just a matter of time, because your body's just gonna be like, well, we are that person, we are that dude, or we are that girl, right? Like, so then you go and do it, and it's just subconscious. Next thing you know, you're like, how the hell did I just?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not a personable person, and now I got like 10 friends that I didn't even know I could get.
Or like when you first started your business, you were part of you was probably like, this is gonna work, but it wasn't working yet. And now years later, you're probably like, huh, this all happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the first year, I mean, we did great, lost everything. Another guy took advantage of us really bad. I mean, we literally lost everything. Like, took all of our money. I rebuilt the entire company from scratch, essentially.
Because you believed in it.
Yeah, because it's just a mindset of like, I don't even want to repeat the words he told me, but but after he said that, I'm like, you think you could kill me? Like, you think you could take me out? And it's just like the mindset of like, I will do this.
Yeah.
It's like, there's nothing that you're going to do to take me out. I've already been homeless. I've already lost everything. Like, there's nothing else that you could take from me. And when you have that, real confidence, fake confidence, it's just, a matter of time before you truly believe it, and then it becomes a part of you.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then success just comes along with it.
Love that.
What does success mean to you guys? That's what I want to know. This is a great question. I love this. What does success mean to you guys? Because this is always a fun topic.
We're supposed to be the ones asking the questions.
I want to
right?
ask this one now.
No, that's a good question.
It is, Matthew.
Interesting enough, so much of this, like we talk about, building a business, and, I recently went from being an E to being an S, sole proprietor. And, and hopefully a business owner next year. And it's been probably one of the scariest things I've ever done, but it's been a beautiful experience through and through.
Yeah.
Because I'll just be flat out honest. I went from making, 65, 70, $1,000 a year to, doubling that in 9 months, simply just because I believed in myself as not only as a therapist, but also as just an individual, recognizing that I was like, man, like I hated the way that like certain systems were put in place for patients and clients. And I was like, that's not the way therapy like should always be done. It can be done differently. It can be done holistically.
Yeah.
There are new ways you can, can, communicate with kids and whatnot to, build a better sense of self. So when it comes for me for success, I think the thing is that I just, I looked at what was,
Hmm.
and I told myself I'd never go back to that.
Yeah.
And so I think the thing is like that was my biggest motivator at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I also too, I refused to go home.
Mm.
I refused to go home.
Yeah.
I would rather like be homeless in LA before I pack up my stuff
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Pack
and
up-
move back home, because
Yeah.
I wanted it. I wanted to build something bigger than just myself.
Yeah.
And if I can impact others while doing the same, like why not?
Yeah. What a powerful feeling. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. That's kind of like what both of you are saying. You're like, I refuse to accept anything less than like the idea and the vision that I have.
Hmm.
Like you're like, I will do this regardless of what it takes. You've gone bankrupt and you're like, I don't give a shit. I'm doing it all over again.
Yep.
So, I'm gonna say this even though it's so cheesy. I'm successful because I woke up today.
And I love it. That's why I love asking this question, because success is different for everyone.
Well,
Yeah.
can I be
Yeah.
honest with you? I just love that. And I stole that from Tony Robbins' conference. He said that exact thing because he asked the question he talks about how he filled a room with actually like successful entrepreneurs and business owners. And one person was like, I don't consider myself successful yet because I haven't made this amount of money. I haven't done this amount, whatever, of revenue. And one guy was literally like, hey, I woke up. And to me, that hit really hard because we talk about like riches a lot of times in this world, I feel like in regards to money. But I'm like, you could be money rich, but emotionally poor.
Mhm.
And that's something that I never want to be. Like, I have also been there where I feel like I've had money and I felt extremely alone. I haven't had money and I've still felt extremely alone. Or like now I have so many friends and the money doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah.
So I think my version of success now in life is because I do have a vision of where I want to take things. I envision this. I tell Matt all the time, I'm like, we're taking over the fucking world. Like, I imagine like just helping people on like this huge scale and being handsomely rewarded with it. But I want to be more abundant so other people around me can be more abundant. But when I think of success right now in my life, instead of like thinking towards the future and like hoping that everything works out or knowing it's going to work out, but still working towards it, to me, success right now is that I'm trying.
Hmm.
If I'm trying and I'm doing the best with my best intentions forward, just trying to help myself and others, I'm successful.
Yeah.
That's my thing, is like just continuing to grow.
Yeah. And I could piggyback off that, because that's very similar to like my version of success is, as long as you're a better person, today than you were yesterday,
Mhm.
You're successful. Because all like you're not racing against anybody else. And this was a topic that we spoke about when it comes to Instagram and everything, right? Everyone compares their life to what someone else is posting as perfect for them.
Mhm.
Yeah.
When you're watching someone else's story, what is it? It's all perfection. It's their best moments. It's filters and all this. So then you're comparing and you're just beating yourself over it when you really don't need to.
Mhm.
And if you can look at life and just go, I just gotta beat myself. I just gotta, I'm only in competition with myself. And as long as I'm continuously growing every single day, I promise you're going to be in the top 1%.
Yeah.
It's a fact. Because once again, you've got majority of the world that's doing what? Maintaining. They're just trying to make it by. Oh, I'm just trying to make it to the next, to the next paycheck, trying to make it to the next paycheck. A lot of people don't snap out of the cycle. So as long as your mindset is, I just want to be better than, who I was yesterday. I want to be a better
Yeah.
person, right?
Mhm.
I want to be healthier, whatever, everything.
Mhm.
And that's true success.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That, in my opinion, that's just true success, because then your self-development is continuously improving. And if you're happy, everyone around you's happy.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Then you can impact other lives. And when you can be impactful, well, I mean, my goodness, you're the most valuable person on the planet,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? Because you just produce positivity in a world that needs as many positive people as possible. I mean, it's crucial.
Yeah. Positive and just like better, like I don't know where I was going with that. Anyways, you sorry. You said before you had two questions. Did you ask both already or?
Oh no, I didn't ask the second one.
Okay, so kind of piggyback off that then.
Yeah, so I had another question for you in regards to motivation.
Yeah.
And now I'm gonna get a little therapeutic here. But I want to kind of talk about what are some of the internal things that keep you motivated?
Um, so there's a lady, I cannot remember her name. She does a TED talk, and I fully believe her. Where if you're waiting to be motivated, it's never going to happen.
Mhm.
You can't wait for motivation. You, I'm not
I feel like
motivated,
motivation comes when you finally get that little bit of result.
right?
And
Like
but that involves you starting to do the thing.
that's like the excitement,
Yeah.
right? You're kind of excited, and you're like, "Oh, cool." That's and what I call that is momentum.
Mhm.
Mm.
That's where momentum starts. You know, the first positive result, you've got momentum, and momentum is scary because momentum grows. And when it keeps growing, right, it's like an avalanche. What happens to that ball? That ball gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and it gets faster and faster and faster, and then it's out of control. And now you're just, an unstoppable being.
Mhm.
Um, so to, I think instead of keeping myself motivated, it was keeping my goal and my vision and making sure that I stuck with it.
Mhm.
I think it's just the goal and the vision. And if you can just stay consistent with that and every single day just remind yourself. So journaling, right? Put that into your routine where every day you're, write what you're grateful for,
Mhm.
write what your goal is. Goals are extremely important because then that's how you measure, right? You
Yeah.
can you can measure your performance and where you're going and knowing if, hey, am I doing the right thing or am I not doing the right thing? Um, so for me, it was never to stay motivated because I'll tell you right now, there's nothing motivating about waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning and dealing with the electricians and then the crew leaders and then going into the sales reps meeting and then after that going to a sales manager meeting and then going to a manager meeting and then doing everything else and you're just nonstop. There's nothing motivating about it, right? It's more so like I know I have to get this done. Um, I know that it's going to be painful. I know that this is going to be, suffering. But on the other end of this pain, on the other end of this suffering, there's going to be something beautiful that I'm going to be proud of. Maybe that's the motivation is
Yeah.
understanding that there's something beautiful at the end of the glass and fire that
Mhm.
you're walking through.
Mhm.
What Elon Musk likes to call chewing on glass and staring off into the abyss. That's what he
What? He
says.
says that?
Yes. So he said, starting a business is like chewing on glass and staring off into the abyss. And I started dying laughing. I was like, I don't know about that, Brad, but it's, pretty close. Yeah.
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 Yeah. So it's just having that goal in mind and, just never losing sight of that. Because once you lose sight of your goal and your purpose
Mm.
and your why, like you become lost again.
Yeah.
Simon Sinek. Do you know who Simon Sinek
I
is?
do not.
I love Simon Sinek. I would.
It sounds familiar, but who is he?
So he talks about the golden circle, and why, is like the most important. So I would recommend definitely
Yeah.
watching some Simon Sinek. He does TED Talks and everything like that. He does a bunch of stand up stuff. But is I used to preach that a lot with new hires and sales reps I would train. And I'm like, know what your purpose is. I'm like, look, I can give you all this information. That's great. But why are you doing
Mhm.
this? Because if you feel if you just lose sight of what your goal is, if you lose sight of what your purpose is, then none of this matters. And at one point you're gonna wake up and be like, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The question is gonna surface itself at some point. So you need to find your purpose, find your why, and then just stick with it. And that's what I think will create a lot of that passion and that motivation when you need it.
That was beautifully said. I do believe that like focusing on your why and just remembering is what will get you through those dark days
Yeah.
completely. I also just love before we were actually eating tacos before coming here, and I was like, "How's Ryan?"
Yeah.
And you were just like, "There's days, but I'm just overall grateful."
Yeah.
Because like you know your why and you know the whole purpose of why you're doing these things.
Yeah.
On that note, too, what is your vision for the future then? Like, what do you want? What's your why you're working for now? After being successful in so many different things, what's next?
I just want to continuously innovate and create because that's what I just love doing. And I love finding things that are inconsistent, inefficiencies, and I love making them better because I feel like if I make that better, I make a bunch of people happy.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Growing up, I've always loved making people laugh. it was like a chore of mine. Like every day I would try
You
to make
have
my
always
mom
been
laugh.
funny. I will give you
Right? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that.
Time from time, I'm not too bad. But There was always something I love doing, and through business and things like that, you can make a lot of people happy, and you can make their lives easier. So my goal and my vision is to continuously make things easier and make things better. Whatever that may mean for whatever industry is involved.
Mhm.
To me, it's fun, right? It's exciting. It's like look what I did.
Yeah, building new
This sucked
things.
before. Like this was hard before.
Yeah.
This was a
Yeah.
problem before, and like now look at all the people that are being able to utilize it and find benefits out of it. And for me, whatever that is, I'm excited to do it. I don't care what it is. It could be absolutely anything, as long as I'm making something better and making it, um, you know, for lack of a better word, like beautiful, right? Like it's just that's how I look at certain things. It's like, oh, this is beautiful. Look at
Yeah.
this work of art. It's efficient, and everyone loves it. And to me, it's just that can scale and that can affect so many people. So it's like you make your ripple in the world, right? You make your impact.
Hmm.
And
Mhm.
if I can do that and leave a legacy for my last name, that's something I want to do, because my family was just the greatest people. I mean, they truly just want to help. And um, just seeing like my dad and like how he's taking care of people, my mom how she's taking care of people, my uncles, they'll do free jobs for people just to help,
Mhm.
right? and
But
and
that's
like
also experience too. Like we were talking, nothing in
yeah,
this world's actually free. Everyone gets something out of
yes, we
something.
were
Yeah.
talking
What
about
did you
that.
say exactly? What was that? Like, don't ever do anything. What was
So
that?
in every relationship, I always believe you have to have a good balance.
Yeah.
Hmm.
You have to have balance in relationships, because one thing that I struggled with is I always wanted to give,
Mhm.
and I didn't realize that I was hurting the individual by just giving them things,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And instead of them taking care of their problem, I was covering their problem and making their problem worse.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it would create that imbalance. And when you have imbalance, whether it's in a relationship or a friendship, resentment will happen from either side, and you can create that rocky relationship. And then you start to have those arguments and things like that
Mhm.
never happened before. um, so yeah, I am a firm believer in just creating that balance, and not just giving something to someone, but helping them through it and being like, okay, hey, how about instead of me giving you $1,000, how about we figure out why are what's going on? Why are you in this
Yeah.
position? Hey, let's look at maybe getting a better job, or how's your resume look? Well, that's probably why you're not getting hired. Let me help you.
Mhm.
So helping them actually resolve the problem versus just covering it.
And how did helping them help you?
Hmm?
How did helping them help you?
Oh, you just feel great.
Yeah.
Yeah, you feel great. It's a little bit of a selfish move sometimes, like helping somebody, because you're like, oh, I feel
Mhm.
awesome for it.
Well, just like when you were talking about though, like your family will do things for free for people just to like help them. It's a
Yeah,
feeling. And also too, if you're offering to help something that you don't always help with, you're learning also in the process.
correct.
So like I know you've talked about even like going out to different companies and working for them because you're like, I just want to see how certain things are done. Like I want to put myself in that position to better myself and see that
Yes.
aspect of a business.
Yeah,
And I'm
because
like,
you're
that's
never too
very
smart.
admirable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you'll never know everything. You can't have that attitude to like, I'm the top of the top of the top, because
Yeah.
another great saying is if you're the smartest person in your company, you have a failing company.
Mm.
It's just a fact. If you're the smartest person, guess what? If you're sick, your company's gone.
Yeah.
That's it. If like my father's a contractor, so if he gets injured, where's the company?
Yeah.
It's not there.
Hmm.
So you have to develop around you, and if it's difficult for you to train and develop, you need to learn.
Hmm.
And focusing on people, and making sure that they have the tools that they need to succeed. That's what's really going to take your company from point A to point B to point C, right? And that's where you get that exponential growth, because now you don't have to work in the company, you can work on the company, and you can start to point them in the right directions and delegate, and then plan for the future.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because I think we were even saying too, nobody's good at absolutely everything. Like you
yeah,
might be good at creating and running your business, but there's probably somebody else who's better at like marketing or like sales or doing this. So in a way, like everyone has different talents, right? If your talent is building the company and overseeing it, then you're allowing somebody else to flourish in their area.
correct.
So I love that too, because essentially, like, a lot of people go into business because they want the freedom.
Yeah.
But I feel like they're like, this is my baby. I'm so scared to like let anybody else take care of things. But that's kind of what you have to do and how you are gonna like thrive.
So Steve Jobs did it.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the interviews with his employees, especially in the beginning, all of them said the same thing. They're like, that man's crazy, just a maniac. But he doesn't micromanage us.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he lets us do what we got to do and take care of it. He just finds out what our strength is, puts us in the right position to succeed, right? And there's no micromanaging, like, why didn't you do this or why didn't you do that, right? He lets them evolve. And then, obviously you've got your one-on-one trainings and whatnot. Um, but yeah, it's important to understand how to develop individuals around you, because you can't get anywhere alone.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? If you have the mindset like, I'll do everything myself, it's like you can only get so far.
Yeah.
Right. It's hard to get out of the S quadrant when it's just you and you don't want to trust anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Get to the B quadrant, you have to start trusting people and you have to start developing.
Yep.
Completely.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited to see like what next endeavor you go on. Honestly, every single time I talk to you, I feel like there's something new that you're creating, and it's completely left lane or like far off from what I thought you'd be going into.
Yeah.
And that's what I think so beautiful though, is like you have kind of embraced the whole like we can create whatever we want to if we genuinely believe it.
Right.
And you've been successful at it.
Yeah.
So thank you for coming on here and sharing all of that.
Awesome. Well,
On-
I'm so honored to be on this
Yeah.
This podcast with you guys. That was awesome.
Yeah. On
Yeah,
that note
truly.
too.
I feel like I've learned just so much.
Yeah.
Like, and also it makes me feel good knowing that I feel like I'm actually on the right track.
Yeah.
Because I honestly, like, you mentioned that business feels alone, and I
Yeah.
know how that feels. But so much of the stuff that you talked about today, I was like, okay, I've either experienced that, been through that, or currently going through that, and that feels good.
That's
So
awesome.
thank you for
Definitely,
that.
man. Definitely.
Absolutely.
Definitely. That makes me happy. Yeah. If I can help a little bit, it's an amazing feeling.
Before we go, do you have anything that you want to tell our viewers?
Yeah. Once again, it's just there's so many things to be upset about in this world, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you look around, there's so many things to be mad about, upset about, depressed about, whatever. It doesn't mean you have to. You have a choice, right? You
Mm-hmm.
can choose all those things to be mad and upset and depressed and hold you back, or you can decide I'm not going to let it affect me, right? And I'm going to be grateful and I'm going to be proud to be who I am, no matter who you are or whatever position you are in life, because you're not dead until you're dead, right? So if you're still breathing and you're still walking around, like, you have the unlimited potential, and that's the most powerful thing on the planet is potential. You have the potential to do anything. You could change the entire world. Look at, I mean, Elon Musk was trying to get us to different planets, right? You got all these different people that are doing crazy things, miraculous things. There's people that came from all different, areas and struggles. And if we can just remember that we're all not so different from each other, we're all not so different. There's so many things that hold everybody back, but as long as we understand that that we have potential and we have the choice, then everything else kind of just falls in line.
Ryan, thank you
Is that good? Good
so
stuff?
much. Yeah, that's
I
some
love
good
that.
stuff right there. I feel like that was a really nice way to go out.
Yeah, I like it.
Ryan, thank you so much for coming on. You know I love you.
Yeah,
And
love you guys too.
until next time, love you guys.
Thank you so much, and keep shining your light.